But maybe you can kind of brief the Planning Commission of kind of what you see as the current issues,
yeah,
and some of your initiatives related to affordable housing, and maybe we do. We could focus on one. We could start with the economic development, go through that chapter. We certainly, all of us, can contribute to that discussion, and then affordable housing.
Okay. I try to give an overview pretty quick, but I think it'll be helpful to get an overview. Just to give you a background, the Economic Development Court was officially formed in 2016. I was hired in 2017. I have our senior project manager, Kelly Brunson, with me today as well. So along the way, University of South Carolina, Beaufort has blessed me and us with great talent. Kelly's the latest example of that. Over 20 years, over many years, really since Governor Sanford through Governor Haley and so on, South Carolina has really distinguished itself as a great state for growth and economic development. And I was at something recently where one of my colleagues from Dorchester said that the pain of growing hurts, but the pain of dying hurts even more. And so growth has its pain, as you all know. Accepting the assignment you did on this committee. So over 8 years, we've done 102 projects. And to date, we haven't been opposed on one of those by an environmental group or not in my backyard group. And I think there's a way we approach our work that has kept us in good stead. Just to give you an idea, we've kind of envisioned a balance wheel, if you will, for Beaufort County. And the key components are the environment. Number one is a spoke. Education, an important spoke. Economic development, transportation, skill development, transportation, and workforce housing. And as an economic developer, I hope we give great focus to workforce housing and any kind of updates you do. A little knock I have is that if it comes to helping a loggerhead turtle, this county does remarkable things. If it comes to saving the life of a pin oak, this county does remarkable things in terms of policy. And when it comes to people, we have to do just as much in the way of remarkable things. And that's my little preach on workforce housing. On February 18th, we do this thing called Converge, where we basically bring the community together to talk about things and issues, and workforce is going to be our focus. So if you're able to attend that, we tend to get a lot of leaders across all of the municipalities in the county. And so just an interesting story. We had an investor come up and invest in an 80,000 square foot building, or come down from Charleston. They go, love this area. It reminds me of Charleston 30 years ago. And I say, well, that's kind of flattering, right? Charleston's known well around the world and is highly respected. But it's also a cautionary tale. And as people who are on planning, you want to be really cognizant of sort of how growth outpaced the infrastructure in Charleston. And today, if you get to West Ashley at the wrong time, it can take you an hour and a half to get to Mount Pleasant. So I believe that's why we have done over 100 projects without antagonizing our residents. Is because quickly on we said, instead of hunting for elephants, I think previous groups in Beaufort County were looking for the next Boeing, the next BMW. We have done a lot of plug-in projects. And why the county formed the Economic Development Corporation? To diversify the economy and hopefully let residents get out of the cycle of poverty. And so by hunting for rabbit and deer instead of elephants, we've been able to, Kelly just graphed it, but in 2021, Kelly, the average wage of job we were recruiting was $48,000. In the last 12 months, we're at $68,000. So we're seeing a bump up in the average wage And so if you put that into a household, if you had 2 wage earners, people could live well in Beaufort. Things to remember, though, and I'll give you a little flyover on projects we're working on, so hopefully it'll inform your policy. But community development is part of economic development, workforce development, skills development. So when you think of the work that they're doing at the K through 12 program, Technical College of the Low Country, and USCB, you have to look at that as community development. And I'll wind it back, and this is where Kelly reminds me I meander a little as a speaker. But while all spokes on your bike are important, we believe that there's one spoke on that balance wheel I described that's really our guide star, and that is the environment. If somebody comes to a project that's going to upset a $2.5 billion hospitality industry, or what residents love about their community, we refer them to a county where they would be better suited than Beaufort. So that you should know. I think if I could, is honoring the environment and really communicating with the public. That is, it kind of creates a common lexicon. As you look at some of the battles, and I stayed up in the last 2.5 months till like 2 a.m. watching a meeting from on my nightstand, and my wife goes, "Is that a live meeting?" And it was a live meeting. When we get out of step with what the community is looking for, it's painful. So we don't want pain, and we joke that we want to live in this community. So I'll give you a quick flyover just to give you an idea of projects we worked on. Up at Gardens Corner, I'm going to start up in Gardens Corner. We have a little aerospace defense business that's going to pop out of that building there, 12 something Tres Parkway, but right at the end before you get to 17. And that little project, 15,000. When they were looking to come into town, we had to meet preemptively with Hillary Austin to see if their future plans could be accommodated at that site. So that's the kind of where planning and economic development can meet. I believe that project will create about 35 jobs, average comp 125,000. Flying down, coming down the Tres Parkway in Lebico, what we have purchased 117 acres across from the chemical plant, and we entered a voluntary cleanup contract with DHEC, and we're going to monitor the site, clean up certain parts of the site. Our dream is to have a meat processing plant there, that's our concept, maybe not our dream, but our concept would to working with Councilman Dawson, try to have some job creation back up in the Lebico area as it once was. And so we see maybe a meat processing operation and a fishery. And that's modeled after a fishery that we witnessed in the Netherlands. So it would be this one in particular, 200,000 square foot facility, pumps out 8,500 metric tons of sushi grade yellowfin tuna, indoor operation because the F-35 pilots don't want birds hitting on exposed tuna. So it would be an indoor operation. We're trying to learn from University of North Carolina at Wilmington on recirculated aquatic systems and looking at that. Coming down into Beaufort, we just had a meeting with the city of Beaufort, continuing to build out a little bit of infrastructure in the park. We have like a ceramics company out of New York looking at a parcel there. We have a boat builder of sorts looking at another lot in the park. And we have a commercial laundry service making a $35 million investment in that park today. I'll try to move quickly because maybe I'm boring you. But out on St. Helena, a community development project that the council had asked us to look into, and soon we'll be presenting that to council. The Councilman Glover's idea is to have a cultural center there. We kind of envision it being wrapped by an entrepreneurial market that would feature Gullah Geechee products. So we'll roll that forward and see if it has legs. But we've done all of the reconnaissance and research that we can. Coming into Port Royal, coming back this way. Hopefully, I'm not skipping anything that you have questions on, but you can ask them. As we look at Port Royal, cool coastal and far from ordinary, they want to really focus on retail. So we're working on with them with a group called Retail Strategies to look at their business mix and kind of bring to life that area on Rebo Road and down Paris Avenue. Things to watch in throughout Beaufort and Port Royal. There was a request for proposals on 3 sites for a veterans clinic, somewhere to be in 2 of the locations were City of Beaufort and 1 in Port Royal. That could be the first domino, so as planners, keep in mind that there'll be possibilities for the county and the town of Port Royal at some point to look at redevelopment of the Naval Hospital site. Coming into Bluffton, just to give you an idea kind of what we see, and we keep offices in both City of Beaufort and Bluffton, but within about, I would say, a quarter mile of where our office sits on Buckwalter, there's $450 million being invested in healthcare. So that's something to look at. We were working with a company that wanted to have a headquarters in Bluffton. Small company, again, rabbit and deer is what we hunt for, so small company. But the tariffs made them just pull the plug on the project and maybe go out of business. So tariffs are affecting our economy. We had a little German company, Kelly, you'll refresh me, but about 30 jobs. Fact check me. How many jobs? 30 if you reverse the numbers, I'm right. But that's why I keep younger and better memories around me. But okay, so 13 jobs, averaging $68,000 a year?
Yeah.
She might just be yesing me. Did you see her body language? I didn't see it. So, so that's the kind of little project that we can attract. And that's a German company. And we think you get them in, we could grow them. But they're not going to be, it's not going to be like IBM's headquarters or Coca-Cola's headquarters in Atlanta. Small stuff is what we're targeting. Then we'll fly out to Hilton Head projects. We're working on some healthcare projects, locating them on some sites. The mayor out there has us really focusing on redevelopment of sites that are underutilized. Probably our largest project out there will be about 99,000 square feet of hangar space on the private aviation side of the airport with a 5,000 square foot, they call it a fixed base operation for pilots to check in. But that'll be about, using 2023 numbers, about a $24 million investment, create 50 jobs averaging $81,000 a year. So these are the kind of things we're working on. I hope my description of economic development helps you. But I do think if I was to inform good policy, and if you can spur it on, again, making sure we honor the environment, make sure what we embrace is scalable to the infrastructure we have, and really making sure that the engine of our economy are workers. And if workers can't afford to live here, can opt to live in Pooler and work at a Hyundai plant, when the realities push the engine out of our region, you don't want to look back and say, I could have done something policy-wide to create housing. And and maybe this resonates with you, it does with me, but you know that expression, whatsoever you do for the least of your brothers as you do unto me. I do think housing would be a great way for policy to respond to that kind of call to order. But that's what I have from economic development. I'd be happy to answer questions.
John, I had one question. It sounded like you were touching on all the core values that we list in our comp plan under economic development. The one that I still was curious about, and I know we've talked about it in several of our cases that have come before this commission, is the regional cooperation outside of Beaufort County. When we see what's happening, for example, in Jasper, and the contrasts with what's going on there versus things that we're trying to accomplish in Beaufort County. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yes, yeah. We work in particular economic development, obviously, with we interface with the LOCOG and then the Southern Carolina Alliance. And, you know, we have board members. I believe Alice Howard is going to appoint herself to the Southern Carolina Alliance's executive. So I think in terms of giving it the highest level of priority with our chairperson being on there, that what we've accomplished in 8 years can be improved upon going forward. They're going to have a change at the top, which will give a lot of opportunity for us to kind of continue to improve on what we have today with the Southern Carolina Alliance. But it's the South Carolina model for delivery, because I know at different times people say, oh, well, we shouldn't belong to that, or, you know, we should do our own thing. The South Carolina approach to economic development's a national leader, best practice. So working with the Department of Commerce, with the Southern Carolina Alliance down to the local level, it's a great model. You know, as all human interactions, you know, require a lot of communication. And I think with Alice Howard there and our board members, it continues to get better and better. Does that answer your question? Yes. Kelly will criticize me for long answers too, which is accurate. I apologize. I get good feedback. I just don't follow. No, no, I will try.
I just got one quick question for you. Most of the projects that you describe throughout the county are like commercial types enterprises that would go into place. And I'm thinking you're thinking that by doing that, that would create opportunities for affordable housing. But you didn't talk about any affordable housing projects. Do you have any of those going on?
Affordable housing projects, yeah, we have helped different people looking to do it. For instance, like Hilton Head's North Point. We provided their banker, and Kelly actually did all this, but she was able to contact her contacts at the Chamber of Commerce and get real great data to support the bank's comfort with that particular project that's been lingering since 21, so it's been out there a while. We have done a lot, and I think it came up in conversations as recently as yesterday. We've done a lot with fee in lieu of tax agreements on industry, not just commercial, but fee in lieu of tax agreements for industry in Beaufort County, and also special source revenue credits, another way of manipulating taxes lower to move deals forward. And we've made our counsel and our expertise, made that available to Claude and his staff, and we'll continue to do it, because the problem with workforce housing, and I shouldn't speak too much, but investors, things have to pencil out, and if they don't pencil out, you're at a no-start position that you're not going to break ground. So we're kind of hopeful what we've learned working with industry, not just commercial, but working with industry and bringing the tax rate down from 10 to 6%, Similarly, if it's not your primary residence, you're taxed at a higher rate. So there might be ways that we can use what we've learned about tax code to help these projects. So, but we really leave the workforce housing to experts. But anytime I get a chance to speak, and we did it as recently as September 30th to a crowd of about 200, to remind people, it's going to take some political will. But workforce housing really has to be a focus for economic development to be successful, or for our communities to be healthy.
I just what I'm known for is stupid questions.
We might be related.
You talked about, and I agree with what you're saying, we're not looking for elephants, we're looking for the rabbit and the deer. And the thing that I've heard of most throughout, particularly this part, maybe northern Beaufort County, not so much southern Beaufort County, is there's nothing around here for people to do other than go to the beach and go to eat. What do you do as far as promoting and get folks to bring some of the simpler things, like people have a need for movie theaters? There's been talk about water parks. We lost the one bowling alley that we had, but things of that nature. And I'm not really thinking outside the box. But is that going to be within your wheelhouse to try and recruit even some of those mice, maybe, instead of rabbits?
My board would womp on me if I go to that. I get people, oh, where's the Trader Joe's? Where's the Costco? Where, no, our job is to diversify the economy. I'm comfortable when you see that the housing that is being developed around here now. I know somebody who lives at Margaret 4000, and it's like not full, it's not really populated right now, but hopefully with those beds you would see some of those things you're looking for. But out on St. Helena, where we're looking at doing a project, we're looking at a 10-acre piece of land to get an option on it, and we've got like Food Lion, like maybe I shouldn't say that, but we have a grocery store. Worse has been said on video, but we have a grocery store that if we leave that site, a grocery store is going to take that site. But our board really wants us to focus on diversifying the economy, and we even just haven't left the city of Beaufort. The mayor and the administrator are like, we need high-paying jobs. We need better-paying jobs. But I do believe those services will follow the beds.
And I agree with you, and thank you for that explanation. I do appreciate that. But there's always been a talk about drawing some of the folks that have lived here in Beaufort all their lives, some of these young kids who go to high school, go to college, and they never come back because there aren't opportunities there for them, or there wasn't opportunities here for them, and there's not going to be any opportunities here for their families. You got to start out small with some of these things, but I do understand with what you're saying, the diversity of trying to create jobs, and sometimes maybe even the smallest jobs might help and grow and expand upon that. But
if I could add to that, we have created something with the city of Beaufort and the Southern Carolina Alliance called the Southern Carolina Landing Pad. It's on the second floor of 500 Carteret, right across from the chocolate tree. And we have two engineers there that went through the Beaufort School District, and they're aerospace engineers working for a California aerospace company. We're covered under a non-disclosure agreement, but they're Beaufort young men who were working at Boeing, and they got hired by this California company, could work remotely, and so we have them here. We also have in our Bluffton landing pad, we'll have the sales organization for that California aerospace company working out of the landing pad there. And so we're kind of hopeful that, again, by starting small, someday that company will wake up and say, we've got 14 employees already in Beaufort. Why don't we have a headquarters there? So we're kind of working it small. We think it'll bear fruit.
thanks.
John, I've been to several of your Converge sessions. I'm looking forward to going to the next one. I think the opportunities you present are wonderful, and I look forward to hearing more about them. I have a question for you. What would you say to policymakers gets in the way of you being able to bring this diversification goal to fruition? What are we easy to do business with? Are there ordinances that defy opportunity? I'd be interested in knowing if there are things that get in the way and you say, take another look at it, or maybe come at it in a different way.
I was just telling Claude, my father lived to 94. Wait and see me put my foot in my mouth. That's a good question, Ed. No, I would say yes. It does get complicated at times. Sometimes the deals are complicated. This aerospace project we're working on, or hangar space and FBO on Hilton Head, we've been working it for 8 years. It was given to us on October 21st in 2017, the project. And some of it involved FAA, some of it involved the Army Corps of Engineers. And yeah, there are times with just the nature of people, like not having everyone, this is really valuable to have everyone in the room. But I will tell you, back to this company, TL & Co., that eventually bought the building up in Gardens Corner. Hank Edmondson and Hillary Austin sat down with the company. They were able to talk to the planning department and know what to expect. There's another project that we're working on currently. It's a little bit more complex. I won't give the address of it, but I may give you may be able to figure it out. But I have to say it needs to be reviewed by the regional planning organization. It needs to be reviewed by the planning office. And the thing we try to live by when we work with a company is simple, swift, and certain is what I think we could provide people when they come to Beaufort County. And that could be a quick no, but I think to bring them through a complicated process where I was in a meeting and I was told, their lawyer will figure that out. Well, you shouldn't need a lawyer to figure out what the process is. So that would be a current example of where I think we could make it easier. There was a case, I think back in the day, the former administrator was in charge of planning at the time. And it was a company, a gentleman came down from Atlanta and wanted to do a jelly ball operation at the Levico plant. I know this sounds like a Netflix original, but no. So he knew the mayor of Bluffton at the time and said, meet with John and the planner and they'll help you. And the planner at the time, the former administrator, and I told him, you're dead on arrival, don't do it, And so the guy dropping back to Atlanta and he calls his mayor friend in Bluffton and says, they're supposed to be the business attraction unit. Why did they tell me to do it anywhere but here? And the reason we tell them, give it to him frank like that is because we don't want him to waste his time. You spend a lot of money with lawyers and engineers just when you can tell them the answer is no today. So we're working on one project where I think the path, it involves, are they going to incorporate into the city? Are they going to be reviewed by the county? And then just like procedurally, some of those things should be spelled out, on that particular project. The quicker you can get somebody to a yes or a no, you still have to vet it. I'm not saying you have to approve everything that comes in, but simple, swift, and certain would be, I would think, a good mantra to have when you're trying to create planning processes. Another long answer. Sorry. Is that helpful? Or?
Well, I was looking for more specificity in terms of, I know it's not easy to sit at a table and say, these are the things that would help if you wouldn't do them, or we do them in a different way. But sometimes we get in our own way of making things happen efficiently, effectively,
Yeah, I don't think we're not
Yeah,
really counting it. It's,
Okay.
it's you,
Okay.
on one I gave you, it's probably more of a housing project with a slight industrial piece baked into it, but that's a complex one. But again, we've found the Wednesday review meetings when we have a project, if people get their information, we had a gentleman over in Bluffton, he wanted to buy a piece of land on Bluffton Road recently. We said, before you buy it, go run it by the county, so it's like a county site on Bluffton Road. And he came over and Hillary, because I saw him this week, I said, how'd it go? He goes, Hillary gave me a very clear answer. She goes, 3,500 feet, that's all you can do. So he got a clear answer and he's going to live with that. So I don't think our projects have had any issues with the planning office. This one that involves residential, but I've watched a lot of these, upzoning kind of things, are getting a lot of scrutiny and a lot of concern for upzoning. So.
I have one further comment to offer. Building on Dennis's comment about building the local economy. And a lot of the commercial businesses, big businesses, they need suppliers, they need smaller business to come in. Are there any initiatives underway to have these companies come forward to build expand their opportunities with suppliers or people that they need to conduct their business? Or do you follow through on attracting additional businesses that support them, or seek local businesses already that could expand their operation within Beaufort County rather than leave and go somewhere else?
If I understand, like when we finish a project, and we took one project out to lunch with one of the council members, the guy goes, Beaufort County's been great to me, it's gone really well. What can I do? We asked them to refer us to suppliers that they would like to see here. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
And maybe one thing we were a little unclear with, like Port Royal and working with the Southern Carolina Alliance, we were able, through a USDA grant, able to get them some support to look at their retail strategies. So that would be something that if that's successful in Port Royal, we could probably replicate. That might get to some of the business mix that you were mentioning, but we kind of received a grant and then are bringing in a consultant to work with the municipality. We can do that if we'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if I can ask this question correctly or not, but I'll give it a shot. Does your office tend to work directly with businesses rather than developers? And I'm making that distinction because it seems like, particularly with the direction our development code has gone, that rather than kind of single-use projects, there's more opportunity for mixed-use development projects to fit within some of the land use patterns and the community building that we're trying to accomplish in this area. But I know in other communities that I've worked in, even within the development community, it's often hard to find someone that has a skill set for mixed-use projects. They tend to focus on, I'm a single-family developer, or I'm an industrial developer, or I'm an apartment developer. So I don't know how you kind of try to track down and encourage those unique skill sets, and then you're not dealing with a specific business, but you're dealing with a developer that has a particular set of skills that may fit more with what we're trying to do from a community building perspective in Beaufort. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I can only tell you what we're doing. I understand what you're asking. We tend to work with businesses, and oftentimes the business, because they're closely held, again, rabbit and deer, small companies, the business owner ends up becoming the development of what they're trying to do. Sometimes we make referrals, and then within some developments, like Washington Square would be a pretty good example on Buckwalter. We'll have smaller commercial type businesses contact us. And we don't, even though our board wants us to focus on industry and diversifying the economy, when a preschool comes in and is looking for a site, we'll sit down with them and tell them about a few sites. When a wine shop is looking for a site, or a grocery store is looking for a site, we'll sit down and work with them and then plug them in with the developers. But we don't really work on mixed-use sites.
I was thinking about Lobico, having been to many of those Jelly Ball public hearings. But one of the reasons they were turned down was because of the leftover effluent in some of the old Lobico printing, whatever it was. So that led me to, when you just talked about the land out there, do you solicit money from, say, I don't know, brownfields restoration funds or EPA funds to help with that kind of industrial cleanup? That's sort of question one.
Yes, yeah.
And the other would be, are you on the lookout all the time, and I assume the answer is yes, for lots of property? It could be 15 acres, it could be 150 acres. I mean, do you have like a sort of a running table of what is out there, whether or not it's available immediately?
Yes, yeah. And I don't know if this group knows, but we were given in the prior fiscal year $3.5 million to, and the plan was to give us that for 5 years to acquire land. The largest tract we could find was known as the Buckfield site. It's up in Yemassee, also owned by Richard Chilton, also called the Chilton site. So we had just under 1,500 acres to explore to try to carve out 500 acres. So we had carte blanche to go up there and buy 500 acres. We could have done it. We did our due diligence. The state of South Carolina contributed probably about 90,000. No, 48,000. My fact check. But yeah, we spent about 90,000 towards 180. At 90,000, we realized we couldn't find more than 58 acres that were contiguous and dry within that 1,400 acres. We worked on that project, and we were told again by one of the former administrators we were nuts to work with these folks. But we worked hand in glove with the Coastal Conservation and the Open Land Trust. Yeah.
Sentinel.
Yeah, and so we walked every step of the way through the process with them, because if you wind it back to 2014, before I was here, there was a bit of a war between development and the Open Land Trust and Ace Basin enthusiasts, I'll call them. And so we figured if we're going down the wrong track, we should know soon. And as it turned out, the land did not work for development. And I believe they may have closed on it yesterday at a discounted price because we worked together on it. So, we keep an ongoing product list. We met with the town of Bluffton that's got a 90 acre or 117 or 20. But there's a large tract in Bluffton. We're always watching it, but I believe probably the best model to have in your plan are these like 14, 30 acre carve outs that where we're not changing zoning, and they'll tuck in nicely.
Thanks. That's actually, the upzoning has, more recently, it seems to have become more of an issue. And asking for text amendments to accommodate it without the unnecessary infrastructure. And that's really the sticking point for us. I mean, I've been paying.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this a couple of times. You have a board.
Yes.
So the board is always looking to improve, always looking to make more profit, so forth and so on. How do you reconcile that with the Open Land Trust and all these other environmental advocacy groups? Because it seems you would, like you said, be at war or at least be at loggerheads.
No, we're a nonprofit. So
You're a nonprofit.
We're a nonprofit.
Thank you.
We're
That
no.
answers my question.
No, and Something I learned. I was a mayor of a small town in Connecticut when I was younger, and I did a lot of dumb things, and that I thought were like running government like a business. And I think when you do economic development or even leave a community, what you want to do is see the fabric of community get stronger, not tear it apart. So the way we approach things. We'll get real excited about a project. You're going to see it in the next month where we're real excited about a project. And council may tell us no. And the only thing we can know is that we put our best into it, and it wasn't well received. So we can put ideas out there, and then we just have to accept the outcomes. And we've done over 100 projects and have not been out of sync with the community. And that's our goal, is to, we want to lead. We want to push forward, but we don't want to tear at the fabric of community. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was driving at.
Yeah.
Well, with respect for everyone's time, I wanted to maybe see if we could shift over to affordable housing.
Sure.
Discuss kind of some of the trends and overview of our affordable housing efforts. And then I think at that point, we have 2 hours, we have till 4. And I'm not sure whether we're going to have time to go through each of the recommendations, but what we may be able to do, depending on the time remaining, is kind of leave with, I think, John, you summarized pretty well kind of the overarching approach to economic development, in trying to build off our existing assets, not running afoul of the things that attract people to the area, looking at incremental improvements versus big cataclysmic changes, and understanding the importance of working with the community and making sure that people can afford to live here, that we're not only improving the economy, but we have jobs that people can move to other areas or within the area. So I think with that summary and with some of the things that we discussed, that could become a framework for each of the planning commissioners to look through the recommendations, kind of looking at that overall approach to, whether any of these need to be updated or, changes to be made. And then I guess what we could do with that, I'd like to shift gears to affordable housing, and then whatever remaining time that we have left, we can kind of go through some of the staff recommendations and then use that as a launching point for planning commissioners to weigh in.
Yeah, we're not in the process of a complete redo, as you know, of the comprehensive plan. We're just trying to update what we've got and make sure we're paying attention to the things that are most important. I'm always interested in things that get in the way of doing that. So, if you've got them, don't be bashful and just give us a hint.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
I was just curious, have you already had that conversation with John's organization? Because I think staff and the economic development group are probably going to have a better knowledge of if there's data that's changed or if there are studies that are no longer correct or what have you than what a lot of us are going to know.
Yeah, what we've been doing over the last several months, and Kristen's been really spearheading this, is with each of the chapters, which departments are relevant to kind of weigh in on that initial bite at the apple. And so we've been treating with economic development and affordable housing, we've reached out to John O'Toole and Claude Hicks with the chapter and requested input. So, and we do have some. You have comments, don't you?
Yeah, I want to have enough time at the end to go through these actions, if we could, around 3:30. Just go through all the actions while you're here, while everyone's in the room, and just kind of go quickly through them. So I want to
You
make
just need
sure.
to reel us in.
Yeah.
Ask questions all day if you look.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's, certainly, I think this has been really helpful. I think that, this is a great forum. So, the question is, do we trying to get everything done in the next 2 hours, or, or do we use this as a launching point for maybe a future discussion?
Yeah.
So
A
I
launching
think
point.
that's kind of what we, but I want to make the best use of both John and Claude's time, because you've given your time to come here. So.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I want to also introduce Jennifer Tucklow. She's our Director of Operations. She's the person that makes everything go. She tells me where to go on a daily basis. Next slide, please. For those of you who are not familiar, the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust is truly a partnership between 8 municipalities and Soloco. And this was really started and became a conversation among these municipalities with respect to the fact that none of them had the capacity, the knowledge, or the experience to really tackle housing. So it was we're better together than we are apart philosophy. When the comprehensive plan was written, it was an idea, a concept that was being promoted. That idea then went from a trust, which is a way that the state recognizes the ability to work in the housing field, into a 501c3 nonprofit. The reason that we did that was because we wanted to be able to participate in grants, in some soft funding, and those are way better coming to a 501c3 than they are to coming to a trust. Next slide, please. I have only been here for 18 months, and when I got here, Jennifer had only been here for about 2 months. And the board looked at us and said, we don't know where to go. Can you push this as fast as you possibly can? So we really decided on 3 platforms: creating workforce and affordable housing, doing home repairs for low-income residents, and doing first-time home buyers. What we knew was we couldn't do those ourselves, so we partnered with nonprofits throughout Beaufort County, and we covered Jasper County as well, but totally different market, totally different kind of environment with respect to housing. And we gave grants to 8 municipalities, or 8 nonprofits rather, for them to do one of those 3 platforms. Our first year we handed out $1.9 million in funds. We have in the next week a second tranche of funding that we're going to our board with to see if they will approve. Some of the things that we have done, we decided that we were kind of tired of hearing everybody yell and scream from their vantage point about how difficult it was. And what if we got some of the major players in the area together in one room, 50 of them, and said, what can we do to improve the ability to create workforce and affordable housing? We got some terrific answers. Most of them we kind of predicted we would hear. One of the offshoots of that was immediately after the end of that meeting, one of the local politicians said, elected officials should hear this presentation. So next week, less than 3 weeks after our presentation, we'll be giving to elected officials essentially the same information, the same ideas. We were also honored to have Dr. Laura Ulrich. She used to be with Federal Reserve in Richmond. She is now the economic strategist for Indeed. She came in and gave her perspective on jobs, on where the market was going here, which is straight up with respect to jobs and the need for people, the need especially for younger people to come in, higher education, better jobs. So that was a big win for us. Got a lot of attention amongst the people who were there. And there was a lot of griping, everybody put it out on the table. So we were happy to hear that. We've been looking at municipalities and asking them, what do you want? Where do you want us to focus? What is it that you're looking for? One of the things that the city of Beaufort said was, we want a home repair fund. They had set aside money. We matched those funds. And within the next 90 days, we'll begin repairing the first house that will come out of that program. We got 21 applications. 23 applications. I think half of them were on the same street in town. So if they
All but two.
came from the Northwest Quadrant.
Northwest Quadrant.
Like Duke Street.
Yes,
Yeah,
Duke
a
Street.
lot of Duke.
We drove up and down Duke Street. So Hilton Head and Bluffton also have similar funds. So Hilton Head has reached out to us and said, can you look at what we're doing, help us, give us some suggestions, maybe partner with us on this. We expect that other municipalities are going to adopt the same thing. Home repair is the #1 requested item to Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust. The phone rings all day long with people saying, I live in Yamasee and nobody will come repair my house. And it's a complex process. During this last 18 months, we also became the only entity in Beaufort and Jasper County to be qualified under the state home repair program to be able to go back no matter how old the house is. So we went down to Charleston, got our environmental accreditations to be able to look at any house because we knew specifically in Beaufort you have such a plethora of houses that are over 100 years old, that are in bad repair, that need dollars, that need work. Who are the people in this program? Mostly women, widows, living on very fixed incomes, have no idea how to fix the house, never had a reason to know, but are now in dire straits, so we're helping them out. It's one of the premier things that we've done in the last 18 months. It really has an impact on people who are actually living in houses that are substandard. Developers continue to look at sites in the county. We have at least 2 developers a week call and say, have you got some land? You know, now, I'll be perfectly candid with you and tell you that one of the reasons for that is that I've been doing this for 30 years and I've done over $3 billion in deals like this, 250 projects. So all those investors know if I go somewhere, they want to know why. That was the first question when I got here. One of the investors from New Jersey called and said, why'd you go to Beaufort? I said, well, my parents are from Charleston. I haven't been back here since high school in Columbia, and I thought this would be a nice, easy job. Like all of us said that. But so the investors are looking at Beaufort. They are not using their own tools. So they look at their own tools and they see South Carolina is the #3 fastest growing state in the country. This particular area, second only to Myrtle Beach in terms of the fastest growing in the state. And there's no housing here. There's no multifamily. There's nothing for workforce housing. So they see that as an opportunity. And that's why they're looking for land. They're looking for any opportunities they can find to try and develop. As I said before, we deployed almost $2 million in workforce housing related grants and loans. Only a couple of those were loans. The bulk of them were grants. Next, please. Some challenges. So we looked at the comprehensive plan and what it said about overburdened households when it was written. Unfortunately, the number of overburdened households has risen. And what really rose was 50% of those people who are cost burdened are now in the category of severely cost burdened, which means they spend more than 50% of their income on housing. The standard across the country is 30%. If you're at 30% or below, you're expected to be living a kind of reasonable life, get food sources, got a car that drives, have a decent job. If you go over 30, then you begin to make choices. Make choices with respect to health care, make choices with respect to transportation, make food choices. The more you're spending on housing, the less money you have to put into those categories.
Excuse me, is that a factor of the cost of housing here, or is that a factor of the income level of the people that are looking for the housing?
Both.
Okay.
So you have here, and this is not unusual, but it is unusual in South Carolina, where Beaufort has an extraordinarily high number of wealthy people, wealthy families, and an extraordinarily high number of extraordinarily poor families. And you have the missing middle Those families in the middle literally are stuck. They have no housing options. They can't afford the $500,000 house, but they make too much to qualify for any kind of help or subsidy. They're stuck. So where do they go? They usually end up going into higher priced apartments. Again, they're going over 30%. Or they buy substandard homes if they can afford them and kind of fix them up as they go along. But it's an extremely stressful environment. So I tell people all the time, I don't argue with anyone who has been extraordinarily successful and has accumulated wealth and lives wherever they want to live. What I want them to understand is when they go in the hospital and there's no one there to treat them because there's a shortage of nurses or technical staff, that's where they need to have at least an understanding of how this works. And as John had said, workforce housing in particular here, is an economic development issue. Without workers, without families, without young people coming here and staying here, this is not going to be a place that survives well into the future. We're going to have to figure out the political will to allow reasonable workforce housing to be developed here. Unfortunately, the Housing Authority had two projects that they are working on. Wash Point here in Beaufort and Sandalwood in Hilton Head are both scheduled under a HUD program to be demolished and new construction built, and probably more units for the very low income. However, with HUD and with this administration, it is likely that those projects will be put off probably 2 or 3 years beyond when they were scheduled to be started. For those of you who are familiar with the subject, it does not help that the director just left, but the new director coming in, whoever that's going to be, will have to figure out how to get those back on track and moving forward. Our number one issue, when you asked what stops you, I was one of the people sitting at the Pine Island discussion until 2:30 in the morning. Supposedly there were 600 people there in the gym. And that was a classic example of NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everybody understood the need for workforce housing. They understood what the deal was, but they didn't want the project. And they really didn't want the project. We're seeing that not just there, but in other areas within the county where the local community makes a decision. I don't want traffic. I don't want the pressure on the school system. I don't want the decrease in my property values. Therefore, they come out in force, very well organized, and they make a great point. And they've been successful over the past 6 months in forcing the county to look and say no. And several times, members of the county council have said, I know we need this, but in this particular area, we're going to have to say no. Well, you get down to the point of what area is there? Half of the area here you can't build because of environmental concerns. The other half, there are other structural issues. So it leaves this very, very small number of sites where you can actually build. One of the things the county is doing is they're looking at the 400 pieces of property they own to see if there are any that could be developed for workforce housing. They're in the process of doing that now. I don't know how far they've gotten. The last thing that I heard was they had located 12 out of the 400 that they thought might be buildable, but they're still working on that. What stops workforce housing here? Costs, regulation, density issues, zoning, all of the things that you are used to hearing forever and ever since you've been on planning, since you've been working. Those are the issues that confront everyone in practically every city in South Carolina. There are some discussions about things that you could do. For example, one city, Greenville, expedites plans and expedite zoning approval if you're going to build workforce housing. Spartanburg is toying with the idea of putting in a pilot payment in lieu of taxes program, or what we did in Pennsylvania, which is an accrued tax over a 10-year period. Start out in year 1 at 0, next year's 10%, next year's 20, next year's 30, until you get to year 10 and you're then at 100% of the tax bill. It allows a developer to stabilize the project without that burden. Also, there's lots of discussion about how can you, everybody understands tap fees. There's an argument about why they're so high, but everyone agrees that if you found a way to stretch those out instead of it all being at the front end of the project, that would be potentially a helpful thing to do. I think also there has to be better coordination between developers and staff and the city with respect to expectations. A lot of times the city has an expectation of this is what I want this to look like, or the county rather. This is what I want this to be like. This is how the design that I want. The developer takes that design, it's 20% over cost, and they come back and say, can I start substituting, cutting, modifying? And many times the answer is no. You traded density. You wanted density, we gave that to you, but it comes with a price. So that is another issue here that's being talked about all the time. Next, please. So we're going to report, as I said, on the blueprint for change, and we're going to come away with specific recommendations that we'll report back to the county and the municipalities within the next 6 months. We want to also not just report what everybody has said, but we want to look at some other municipalities and see what they're doing to make some suggestions for change, specific to workforce housing. As I said, the county's looking at developable sites. We currently have, as I said to you before, we gave out in our first year just a little less than $2 million. Our ask next week, we're going before our board and ask for another $1 million in disbursements. But we have $6 million in requests sitting right now. And most of those are to support multifamily development, developers who have a gap. So I'll leave you with one story that kind of demonstrates what John has been saying with respect to workforce demand. So about 10 years ago, I got Legionnaire's disease, a terrible thing. But it causes me to, anytime I have a respiratory issue, I go to the hospital. My wife is pretty diligent about saying, get your butt to the hospital. So I go into Beaufort Memorial, midnight, I had on my basketball shorts, my t-shirt, and my flip-flops, and I said, something's wrong. They said, okay, something is wrong. So they put me in the emergency room. It took almost 8 hours to get a room. But I'm laying there, and this technician walks by and says, are you the housing man? And she had recognized me from a picture. Jennifer and I had spoken before 150 groups and individuals over the last year. After that, about 15 of her fellow employees came in to tell me they have no housing. One technician lives in Orangeburg, leaves her kids with her mom on Monday, drives down here, lives with a friend on their couch until Thursday night, and then goes back home because she can't afford to live here. One after another, they were saying, we'd like to live here, but we can't afford to live here. One of the things that we're doing with Beaufort Memorial is looking at some sites, one site that the county owns, to convert it into housing for hospital staff. We're doing the same with teachers. We've had the superintendent came in and said, what do you mean you build housing specifically for teachers? Well, it has to be teachers that fit a certain income level. Can't be rich teachers. That's not what we're doing. And his response was, whatever we can do to build housing for teachers, because we desperately need it. We desperately need housing for nurses, for service workers. I mean, Hilton Head got it when Whole Foods said, we're closing because we don't have enough service workers. Followed by Panera Bread, followed by Burger King, followed by McDonald's. They went to Beaufort. People don't have to come over the bridge. Where would you rather work? Because there's no place to live on Hilton Head. Hilton Head's doing some remarkable things. They're doing some different things to try and keep people living on the island. But that's going to be an issue they're going to face forever to try and figure out how to combat it.
Along with the bridge.
That's right. That's right. So Jennifer and I attended their Housing Action Summit, and one of the politicians actually said, let's expand parking lots on this side of the bridge, and then when people come to work, we'll pick them up on the trolley, and we'll take them over the bridge, and then we'll trolley them back over, so we don't have all the cars, it's just trolley people coming back and forth. I was like, the money that would cost, you'd probably build another bridge for the money that would cost. But we are trying to make an impact here. We're trying to build something that really has never been done before. For those of you who've been doing this for a long time, you know that trying to get 2 municipalities to agree on something is almost impossible. Try getting 8. We had a minor adjustment made to our legal document, our charter. It took, was it a year? It took a long time for us to get everybody to go, oh, is that what you wanted? Oh, okay. But I want to see what she says and he says and everybody else says first. So it's really remarkable that they have trusted in each other to put their money in, and then for us to figure out where's the best place that it should go, where will it make the biggest impact. We have a representative of each municipality on our board. So they go back and they report to their municipality, here's what we're doing, here's what we're doing for our particular area. So with that, that's the quick summary of affordable housing. We could stay here for days, but we appreciate your willingness to listen and willingness to help us as we move forward. Did I get there before 3:30? I did.
You're amazing.
That's
There
pretty
we
good.
go.
That's pretty good.
All right, anyone have any? Or y'all want to jump into it?
I want to ask where the men's room is. Thank you.
I would just like to make just one comment. It's been my experience in the years I've been on the Planning Commission. Increasingly, we're seeing more and more developers come up and say, we're going to do workforce housing. And you say, everybody goes, great, let's go. And then when you look at the real details, it might be 4 houses out of 280. And it's just, it doesn't solve anything. And the percentages of the 80 to 120 of the average median income, which is pretty high in Beaufort County. And they use this as a dog whistle to bring us to bear on, folks say, okay, it's for workforce housing. Another one that's bothered me is short-term rentals. They seem to be stealing the market away from affordable housing. It seems that the short-term rental community, investors, are wanting to raise those rents to get as much as they can, and it takes away the supply that's available to affordable housing and livable housing for others. I don't know what to do about those except set some policies that say you cannot do that, or cut back the policy that permits short-term rentals everywhere. Because everyone wants short-term rental, it's extra income, but it pushes rents up for everybody.
I think the biggest example of that is Hilton Head. And there is discussion now about what we do. But the 7,000 short-term rentals on Hilton Head, that in and of itself is a political block. and they are not going to give up the dollars that they are getting. So if you look at Beaufort, Beaufort has a cap per neighborhood, and it has worked pretty well. They are looking at, do we make that cap even tighter, even stricter? I think Port Royal is entertaining whether they should continue with their cap. They opposed a cap this year. There are ways to look at it, but you're right. Short-term rentals hurt the market two ways. Number one, it takes rental product off the market that's there and maybe filled 2/3 of the year, maybe half the year. The other half the year it stays empty. But the other thing that it does is when people buy short-term rentals, when they go to sell them, they sell them at market. So that wipes out the affordable part of the buyer's market. They can't afford a $700,000 townhouse. So you're right. There are people who are doing things about it, but it is so strong and has been for such a long time. The only thing that's going to make a difference, I think, Jennifer and I listened to Hilton Head's budget. It was painful. Their budget presentation, and Mr. Orlando started out by saying, this year we will have reduced tax revenue and reduced tourism dollars. When they realize that the short-term rentals are going to also be impacted, it's going to be interesting to see what they do and what the market does. But I think as long as people are getting $2,500 a week for their short-term rental, they're going to do it. The only thing that's going to impact it is when people say, I'm tired of going to Hilton Head and not being able to get in the restaurant. I'm tired of, I got sick and I had to wait 3 hours to get in the hospital. Then markets, when they begin to change and shift away, and they go to someplace else, another beach in North Carolina, or Myrtle Beach or somewhere else, then is when the market's going to begin. People are going to look as the value of their short-term rentals begins to come down. There's an article that was written 2 months ago that said most short-term rentals do not even break even. So you're right. It has an impact.
It's a piece of the puzzle.
It
And
is
I
a
think
piece
it's
of the
just
puzzle.
easy to point a finger at short-term rentals as a low-hanging fruit. But it's just a piece of it. But
So-
I think people get bogged down in really focusing on it. But again, if those houses sell and flip, they're not affordable. They're not workforce. They're well outside of that market. So to really look at it as a change now, you can't really flip it and undo it.
You'd have to go through a whole generation of homeowners before you could get to
Maybe.
anything reasonable, maybe.
Maybe.
Oh, you go.
You talked about being able to repair houses that are older and, most other programs can do. What about those houses, because there are a lot of folks that, my mom lived here, my grandma lived here, but they don't have it in their name. And they're usually not able to get any type of repairs done. So is there anything that your agency can do to assist with that, or is there,
So yes and no. A number of the people who applied have heirs property issues. The state will not allow us to put money into properties that cannot give us a clean title. And there's a reason for that. They don't want renters to be in a house and they sign yes, come in and repair the house, and then the owner goes, thank you, pulls the renter out and then sells the market. Some of those houses on Duke Street, if you put them on the market as is, they would be extraordinarily expensive. So what we did was 3 things. Number one, we went to Federal Home Loan Bank and asked for money to help to solve these issues, solve these problems. They said, your company is too young. So, but they did give $200,000 to Low Country Legal to do the wills part of that heirs prevention and heirs processing part. What we are saying is there has to be a partner who's willing to go in with us to establish an heirs center here. There is one in Charleston. The difference between here and Charleston is if you go to Charleston for help and your house and they solve your issue, you can't sell your house. You have to make a commitment that you're staying in the house. Here, our board has said, no, people should have the right to sell their house if they want to. It's their house. But we have seen some extraordinary stories about how things happen. We had one lady, they did a fantastic job. She lives out in St. Helena. Only to find out that when she said, this is my mother's house, what they found out later was her mother was a woman who would take in children born to unwed mothers. And so this lady said, wait, my 6 brothers and sisters none of them were related to me. Neither was I related to the woman who I thought was my mother. Try and untangle that. It is extraordinary, it is expensive, and sometimes it just can't be done. There's going to have to be a legislative, and we've talked to Senator Davis about this, there has to be a legislative way to say, and to get all the banks to agree, and all the financing companies to agree, that this will be, because, I mean, think about it, they can't get a loan. Even if they wanted to borrow money, they couldn't. So that is a major part of our discussion. We talk about it every day. We talked about it today, about how many of the applications were denied because of heirs property issues.
And then you have those same people there, and I'm saying this because I work where we help with electric bills and propane. Their monthly utility costs are through the roofs because their houses are so...
They're so dilapidated.
Yeah. And so it's like they can't afford to pay their electric bill, or they can't afford to do this. And, you know, with limited funds, we can only help
It's a cycle.
so much. So it's...
And then we also have a restriction on mobile homes with the state. So if it's 25 years or older, you can't work on it. So and if you look around, we have a huge number of mobile homes within Beaufort and Jasper counties. So again, we are trying to work with the state to see how we can work around it. What can we do? Is there a point at which we can say, okay, we're taking that off the table, but can we use dollars to put towards a newer
windows
structure?
or something.
Well, we've even
Or a structure.
We've talked about going to the mobile manufacturers and saying, do you take your trade-ins when they come in? Could we buy some of those at a discounted price?
Yeah.
Can you build a mobile home at a discounted price? We talk all the time about mobile homes. South Carolina is the 3rd fastest growing mobile home for mobile home living in the United States, and it's not going to stop because the land is so expensive that you can't build a house on it. So you put a mobile home on it, and then the land becomes the thing that everybody is attached to. So they want to keep the mobile home on the land, not move it, because it's the only thing I've got. You know, this is it, and it's a problem.
Sorry, was I jumping in front of somebody? Sorry. Have there, you talked about what I was questioning too, because particularly down in St. Helena, some of those ladies on it is mobile home. Is there within the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust for affordable housing? Let's face it, some folks don't meet the income requirements. They're either above or below. They don't fit into that tight bracket. Is there an opportunity for perhaps a lease to own? Obviously, it would take a very, very long vetting process or very detailed vetting process for someone to do that. But there are people that would eventually love to get in a home, but they can't afford it to begin with. But over a period of time, is there a possibility to do something along those lines?
So the answer is yes. Our approach is we would go to developers, big developers, and say, when you're doing your subdivision, would you set aside 20 units for lease to own? Now, I can tell you what they're going to say, but that means we have to manage them. Yes, it does. But if you put a premium at the conversion that kind of pays for that, then you're really having somebody build equity, and maybe in a 5-year period of time they are at a place where they're going to actually be able to afford it.
And would there be a way to tie into that, perhaps a tax break in some sense for the developer to give it more incentive to do that?
Yes, that's the number one issue that we talked about with respect to helping develop. People don't want to help developers because of the image of what developers are, but you have a lot of good developers out there. You have a lot of people who stay in for a long time. Unfortunately, here we don't have very many affordable housing developers who are from here.
Right.
Very, very, very few, and most of those work in Charleston. But the answer is yes. That is something that we could look at and something we could discuss.
In your meetings with other municipalities, I mean, away from Beaufort County, like up in Charleston, for example, have you had discussions about how to raise the percentage of affordable housing units are in any development? I mean, that's something that I think we're all going to be talking about because it's come up twice very recently.
So,
just to follow up on Ed's question, I mean,
yes.
What are some brainstorming ideas or feedback? Is it state
You're
issue?
talking about Pulte?
Yes.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, we can talk about it.
I mean,
It happened.
Pulte started out when they came to us offering 10 units. Then they raised it to 20 units. They got just blasted by the county. I mean, they just didn't, it just wasn't even a starter. And primarily because the people who showed up to speak against really weren't speaking against the project. They were saying, you're not helping me. My house is about to fall down or my sewer system won't work. And that's where kind of I think the county looked at it and said, geez, let's go back to the drawing board altogether. And I think they will. When we have taught, there is such a thing in some states called inclusionary zoning. Inclusionary zoning says if you will put X percent of your product as affordable, we will give you certain tax breaks. We will give you certain incentives. Unfortunately, in South Carolina, inclusionary zoning is not legal. So what you have to do is do it like we were thinking Pulte was going to do it as a voluntary system, which they were willing to do. I mean, but people also look at Pulte and go, you're a $1 billion industry and you can't do more than 20 units. A sitting county councilman said, if this is discussed again, I'm going to ask for 50 units. So
That one wasn't captured on the hot mic.
no, it was not captured on the hot mic.
Let's see, another thought just, anyway, forget, it flew away.
But they're also not going to propose development that doesn't make money.
Yeah.
And so, I
That's
mean,
right.
and that's the long
I
and
know what I'm
short.
saying.
I mean, that's the long and short. It's got to pencil out and they have to make money.
Everything's got to be return on
Co-
investment.
Correct.
But that's where we have to
And we
be
have to meet the
creative.
middle. We do.
Right.
And there are ways to do it, and he knows all the ways.
So
I don't know the ways.
So-
I'm putting him in the hot seat.
you ready for your?
Yeah, well, so I guess we just go over this real quick. So we're going to jump back to economy, and then I'll go to housing. So this is just our basic strategies and actions. Oh, so I already have some comments on some of these, along with Juliana. She made some comments. So this first one is support and enhance existing economic drivers. So we have Fort Royal Sound, supply chain, for tourism, growth of tourism, protect the natural environment, and then our action is to seek partnership with Fort Royal Sound Foundation. I think that one can kind of remain. That one's.
Yeah, this is basically kind of reflecting that, why do people want to move here? What are our current strengths? Hospitality, tourism, the military, or economic drivers. And how do we, before we diversify, we want to make sure we support, what it is that drives the economy. That's kind of the rationale. So the first one really focuses a lot on the hospitality and the environment. The second one jumps into specifically the military. And so what that does is really it's talking about the importance of the military, especially, well, for all of Beaufort County, but especially northern Beaufort County. And so that anything that we do as a county to support and strengthen the bases, fighting, making sure that we don't permit encroachments on the air station. I think all of these things like affordable housing play in. But that's what these first two policies have to do with. And with each policy, not every single one of them, but they then have an actionable item, and that's what's in our action playbook and what we've been going through when we talk about implementation. So.
The only thing I might add there is I've not interacted with the Port Royal Sound Group Foundation that much, but I've interacted with environmental groups. So you might want to make that more neutral. This seems to have a bias towards one environmental group versus environmental groups.
And I actually agree. When we were editing the comprehensive plan and coming up with final edits, somebody from the Port Royal Sound Foundation, they were very,
I can only imagine what voices.
But it would be,
which I agree. I think they're a great organization, but I agree that we shouldn't just call out one.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good comment.
Pretty blatant.
So, we want to do the military part.
Yeah, with the military, I mean, everything that we do, the airport overlay, implementing those restrictions, the partnerships that we have with the air station on land purchases in the area of interest around the air station, all of these things kind of play into strengthening. And I think there's also recommendations about working on environmental, we've worked with them on sea level rise and partnering projects with living shorelines. So all of these things kind of fall under that umbrella for the air station.
The only thing I might add here is that you may want to really flower it up a lot to say that Beaufort County wants to distinguish itself as one of the best communities in the U.S. for the, because we really want to be their partner. At some point, you may point to this document to say that it's understood by all members of the Beaufort community that we are supportive. So if you ever go through a BRAC again, where they're looking at base realignment and closure, that this document underscores how important and the high regard that we hold the Defense Department or War Department in.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how this really ties in. This might be something we have to do, but do we know within the county at all if we do any, this is probably a bad word to use, do we do any recruiting at these facilities for members, military members that are getting ready to separate? Because obviously they have a large skill set in a lot of different areas. But do we do anything to go after these folks to keep them here?
Yes. So my colleague and I are at the military base twice a month. At their,
both or just?
We just go to the air station.
Okay.
We've had partners at the Don Ryan Center who have, with the town of Bluffton, who have gone to Paris Island and everything. The MCAS one seems to be largely attended, higher attendance numbers. So we've been at those.
Okay.
We want to distinguish ourselves as the Marine Corps alumni club that looks to place them in jobs. And if you go to our website, we feature the Marines as the skilled workforce, a unique value proposition for Beaufort County.
And I think, as you probably already found, there are a lot of guys, not just at the aviation, that have very unique skill sets as far as the aviation industry, but also on Paris Island, there are some guys there that have phenomenal experience that have retired as E8s, E9s at a very young age, that have superior administrative and business skills on how to run a company and organization, whatever. It just hasn't been put into the private sector.
Sure.
Could we put the military guys on repairing houses?
They wreck houses.
There you go.
The Billy Quonset huts, right?
Rob, I have a question.
We could.
A number of years ago, ELCOG sponsored the Military Installation Resilience Review, and there was a number of projects that they identified on a prioritization basis in the case of climate emergencies and so on that need to be taken care of, because of their elevation levels or the road structure, the routing and so on. And they identify these different projects. I don't know that what we've done or how we've indicated we would we would support them going forward with this. There's not been, that I'm aware of, much public dialogue about those different initiatives that were identified. It's about 8 of them that were really very well thought through by engineers that were brought in.
Yeah, and I thought that we did have an action item that dealt with that.
There was one at Shell Point, I think.
Yeah, and we have partnered with them. The county, the town of Port Royal, in promoting those projects, and we've provided local support. So there is an ongoing cooperation with them. We also work with the military on a lot of resilience planning issues.
I know that.
So,
Yeah.
I thought that there was something that referred to that in here.
Over here.
Well, that's open space. We did. Yeah, we'll make sure that we.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more from the military, and a lot of times at our
It's
meetings-
they did
Speak out.
resilience study for the air station.
Yeah.
And have like certain
Yeah.
projects that came out of that.
Is it not this one? Military installation of solar?
Yeah, I think that's. So maybe this E23. This might be an example of where this may be.
Well, this one was completed in 2022.
Yeah, so this may be expanded to talk about assisting with implementation. This might be an example of one of those revisions.
removing obstacles to implementation and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
Yeah, sponsoring, get behind it.
okay.
I have 2 questions. I should probably know what this is, but I don't. The 2015 Low Country Joint Land Use Study, is that still relevant? Where is it?
Yes,
in terms of implementation.
It's such a fancy word, but really what it was looking at, they did a kind of a scientific analysis based on the F-35B coming in of the noise contours, based on their flight patterns, the crash zones, accident potential zones. And this is all the process of getting that implemented into a local overlay district. And so that was implemented, with the F-18. So in supporting that joint land use study, it's happening through that implementing the airport overlay, which means restricting density in the highest noise zones, accident potential zones. There's some restrictions on use. There's requirements for additional noise attenuation in houses. So we have that in addition to the air station has a larger area of interest around it that we work more with them on land purchases through like the Green Space Program, partnering with some of the Department of Defense grant programs.
So we're still implementing the recommendations?
Yes. It's sort of like until they introduce a new aircraft, we're in those same noise contours.
And then the E22, I know in the document that went over a couple of planning commissions ago in terms of the action items. It didn't list what the status was of that. Is that something that's just still out there waiting to?
So we have made many attempts to try to kickstart this, and it's one of those that my life might be easier if we just took it off of there and just lowered people's expectations. It's been very difficult to implement for a number of reasons. One of them had to do with we don't have the same market for high density is places such as Montgomery County, Maryland, where these kind of programs have been successful. And also, in any kind of transfer development rights program, you're trying to create a demand in areas where we want high density for them to buy development rights in order to preserve areas that you're trying to preserve. A lot of the high density areas are in the municipalities and they've never really bought into the program as well. And so that's been kind of on hold. It's still in there as language, it's been an idea that's been out there for about 20 years now, and we spent a lot of money on studies, on how to implement it, and it still remains an idea. I think it's something everyone supports because it's a way of generating, money for land preservation through development in areas where you want it. But I don't know that we have the right growth dynamic here to support it. But, that's a good question. We want to continually keep that idea alive, and then maybe at some point in the future it might be workable.
E3, target recruitment industries. I did have a question for you, John, if you thought this one was still appropriate. I'm going to keep that up for you.
In the last year, or the last 6 months, we've purchased 117 acres in Lebico, 14.77 acres on Parker Drive in Beaufort. I'll put this out there, economic development should occur in Beaufort County where it's best placed. That may not be appropriate for Hilton Head or even Bluffton. And I think it kind of divides up our purposes to think that we really can sprinkle economic development in each community. So if we foster economic development in a commerce park, somebody from Port Royal should be able to get there to work. So I don't know that really sprinkling this around. There should be something in there about continue and identify sites for purchase that fit with the plan of development.
Why not put a goal in there? The idea is to continue to do it, but here's our goal.
Yeah. So
Something like that.
Yeah. So I would say 30 acres annually might be a target going forward.
A target goal.
Yeah.
Something like that.
County-wide.
Not necessarily in each jurisdiction.
Not in the jurisdiction, because I think it's the different communities think like their kids competing for something versus really the best that are out there. But you're talking about pressures on workforce housing and locations. The green penny's another. When you're taking land off the marketplace, now you're driving up your costs too. So, these, and then you've got the Pulte's and and everyone else. So you've got to look at all these competing interests as making it more difficult to have a balanced community in the future.
Well, when you had talked about earlier that aerospace that you're talking about in the Gardens Corners or on the other side of 21, which is part of green space.
Yes.
So you've got that big area that could have been used for economic development.
Well, no, that's the one we looked at that we couldn't find anything but 58 acres dry. So
okay. Well, there you go.
That was, we worked very closely with them on that.
Good.
And the 58 acres was not served by any infrastructure, so it was not attractive still.
All right, E4, I have some things on here. I don't know if you know anything about them. Have to do with the county's personal property tax rate for registered county-based aircraft. I don't know where that came from or who that would be related to.
What is it?
It says reduce county's personal property tax rates for registered county-based aircraft.
Taxing the county.
They own two helicopters,
Yeah,
and one
Well,
they
those
use
are
for
leased,
parts.
right?
Yeah, what?
Those are
No,
leased.
they're on loan from the Department of
Right,
Defense.
and then we've got the mosquito patrol.
No, it's county-based aircraft, so it would mean people who license their planes at
Right.
one of our two airports.
That
it's
may
taxed
need to
at
be
10%.
clarified.
That seems like somebody's pet peeve that got
I
tucked
don't
in.
know.
Seems like you better look at which council member who
Yeah.
flies. Or,
I didn't know whether it came from John Rembold or.
But you need to clarify.
that's one of the attractive things about the project we're doing on Hilton Head is tax revenue that you could expect. So.
We are thinking about getting rid of this one just because we can't with the
The utility company worries about LEED and Energy Star, so.
I don't know if we,
Yeah,
building permit can see anything.
In speaking with our building department, they said that with the International Building Code, you really can't, now what does that read? Accelerated building permit process. There's something in this recommendation that's not quite workable. I mean, I know that we want to promote LEED and Energy Star, but this incentive and it being in the economic development section,
We'd never get that through this council. If I brought an incentive to the council based on energy consumption, they would boo me out of the room. But on the other side, you have just across from E4 there, you have support and the spec buildings. That's the way that we can, if we pursue the spec buildings, which we do, and I'm going to remind council of this on Monday, we can incentivize through that process, so you can do the purple.
Target land purchases and then I don't think that there's anything left on here that has any actions, which I found a little.
yeah, these are, so we have policies and actions. Policies are kind of positions of council or guides them on how to make decisions. Actions are actual things that they can do. So these last three are more like policy positions, you know, because council's not really, it doesn't have a direct role in like developing a highly skilled, well-trained workforce, but they can work with other entities that do.
And that could drive them on a project coming forward through Technical College of the Low Country for Arthur Brown Training Center.
Yeah, we have some stuff for
Yeah.
there. I did. This is another one you may have no idea where this came from. Support legislation that would amend the current South Carolina economic development qualifying criteria from a per capita income base to an average regional wage base.
I think that that's based on the wealth of Beaufort County is skewed when you go per capita income, but if you actually look at average wages, we're much lower.
We do speak out on this too, because you can be a tier 1 county, so you're excluded from all sorts of benefits. But when you get to, best described Beaufort to me was islands of opulence with the sea of poverty. And so you get to these you get to jurisdictions within Beaufort, and they could be as needy as a neighborhood in Allendale County or something. You know? So, I keep that in there just so that we can continue to voice a concern when we're with policymakers about how they determine it. The language could be clearer to say that you shouldn't have blanket policy for a whole county when within it you have certain zip codes that are as poor as any other area or challenge.
Support green sustainable development projects that meet economic development requirements by streamlining the review process as well as creating fee reductions and waivers and building density bonuses. Is that something
that would be through the community development code, so that's not tied to building code review.
Okay. I think, unless you know of anything else within the economy section, do you want to move on to housing?
Are you actually doing E51?
Target land. Whoop. We've been involved a lot at Buckboulder Place, and that's a mixed-use development. I think what this is pointing at is promoting other communities like Buckboulder, where we have a mix of land uses and promoting walkability.
It'd be interesting. This gets ratified by the county council.
Yes.
Yeah. What we're getting from county council, and we can respect that, so you get into the Buckwalter area, the market will pay that $900 per acre, $900,000 per acre, whereas we don't have the wherewithal to buy it. And what we get from county council is that they think that we should not be interfering with the free market when it comes to places like that. So it's kind of interesting. You may want to, I understand you're trying to achieve density and less reliance on cars, but you might do that somewhere else in this through your approval processes. But we don't have the budget to buy that kind of land.
Yeah. It could, maybe I think it's still a good, I know that there was an effort maybe 10 years ago with the Buckingham area of Bluffton where you have a lot of warehouses and trying to develop that as an innovation district. So I think that there are opportunities to create kind of mixed-use districts that might promote business incubators or,
To reflect the council, though, you would say work with developers. To
maybe
achieve
take
it.
the emphasis off the land
The
purchases.
buying, yeah.
Okay.
So you can still incentivize in some way, but not through land purchase.
Yeah.
Rob, is there more we can do to identify and promote workforce development skills or mismatches in the workforce development skills? I read somewhere there was a workforce development plan 20 to 2023. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Anyway, there's a question of the mismatch of workforce skills, a mismatch of underemployment and moderate wage growth in Beaufort County.
Is there mention
I'm
of
just
PCLs?
wondering if there's something more that we can do to promote or incentivize
Students coming.
or work with organizations to reduce to improve workforce skills and reduce any mismatches.
I mean, I can.
This would seem to me something under economic development.
Very much work to come. Has been to be our meetings.
There was a study, I think, by the Southern Carolina Alliance on that, during that period of time.
Mhm.
And that probably comes through working with our regional partners, that we kind of approach that. I'm just looking for some data I have on wage growth in this MSA.
So that study was done by the Southern
Carolina.
Carolina Alliance. Okay. We can look into that and look at the recommendations of that report.
I
I think what we're looking at is in what ways is Beaufort County, either through its policy or through actions, able to, support that. And so I think we do list these 3 bullet items, and we'll look through that to see if that sheds additional light on this.
For 6.
Yeah, for E6.
Do we have anything else for economy before we move on? Claude, are you good with another 15 minutes? And it's
Sure.
3:57.
Sure.
Is everyone else good with that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, 15 more minutes, you think?
Okay.
I appreciate the
This is a stepping stone, a building stone. There's a
As
lot
long as she doesn't
a
turn
lot more
another
that's
15 minutes
needed.
after that.
No, this one's a little bit shorter. Okay, so this one's housing. I did get your updates to percentages, so we'll implement that. And maybe get rid of this part about the wait list for the housing choice vouchers.
Just say it remains closed.
It just remains closed, not
Yeah.
2020.
You can't open it, because there's too many.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you know when it may open?
Yeah.
So it was closed for 3 years.
Yeah.
They opened it for a week. They added 3,000 people to the list.
Wow.
And it's closed again.
And it's
So there's
so
no-
closed again immediately.
That's a tease.
Yeah, because there's 1,000, I think, vouchers that are unused, because there's nobody that will take them.
Okay. Let's see. So, first one was develop policies for appropriate location and quality of affordable housing. And our action was create affordable housing location criteria and waiting to refine affordable housing location mapping included in the comp plan. So that's something that we would do.
Do you think we should also use the word workforce in here as well? Workforce and affordable?
Yes.
I feel like it's more inclusive, and it's not market, but it's still. I feel like if you're talking, and we've said so much about workforce, I think you need to include workforce and affordable because it's out of the realm of a lot of people
And
here.
the local response to the term affordable is not
It's not good.
good.
Yeah,
It's a misnomer.
If they're synonymous, should we?
they're not synonymous though.
Yeah,
They're a little different. They are different. They're different AMI kind of restriction on workforce and affordable. I mean, in affordable housing, people still have to be working. You have people that are working and living in Pintail Point. In Carrington Manor, those rents are still $1,500 and $1,600 a month for a one-bedroom apartment.
For a senior.
For a senior. So they've got to have some kind of other income. They're not just a social security payment. They've got to have something else.
How would you want us to put that in the comp then? Would you want that to say,
I would just, wherever you have affordable, say workforce and affordable. I just
Do both.
replace.
Yeah.
I would do it every time.
You know what I recommend that we do, because it's not in the comprehensive plan, is that we define affordable housing and workforce housing. It could even be a policy that,
Okay.
for the purposes of this. Because I get asked that question a lot, and I know that it's in other studies that we have. Maybe we can work on that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Based on what you're saying, it should be worded workforce and affordable, not affordable and workforce. Put workforce first.
It just softens it a little
That's
bit.
what I meant.
And we just try to make it as appealing as it can because of,
The reaction.
reaction. We want it to be here, not here.
No, I understand.
Yeah. And workforce, if you put it first, and it flows a little better. Actually, workforce and affordable is affordable and workforce, I think.
You violate the alphabet. but
I
that's
do.
okay.
I do violate the alphabet. I will take that.
Claude, I'm going to ask you kind of another stupid question I gave John his, and I have to give you my stupid question. What type of promoting are you folks doing to make the services that you have available to everyone? And I have to use this as an example because I giggle at it every other month. Stormwater actually has something called like a poop program to pick up your dog poop, and it's at all the county and city functions. Are you making your presence known not only at these functions, but promoting yourself in other venues so that folks know that this is out there and that they need to reach out to you? I mean, I know in some areas it is, but in others it's
We have a very, not overly complicated website, but one that is comprehensive, that anyone can go on, they can see where to go. Our partners also, when they are working with directly, let's say do a home repair, they're telling that person, we got our money from Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust.
And that's good for word of mouth, but I mean, just had a rough idea here, and I don't know if you do this too. A lot of folks that don't have access to the internet or can't get on there, what they do is they go to the library. Is there something there in the library that perhaps could be handed out or distributed to say, as long as you're here?
So the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust is still just us two.
I know.
So we can't really have all 8 jurisdictions decide to call us at one time to ask for help. And we're trying to build on how we intake people and because all of that builds for future programming that we can slide them into, whether it being a City of Beaufort repair program, a state repair program. So we are trying to build some systems to intake, but it was a brand new organization in December of 23.
One of the things that a Bluffton councilman has asked us to do, and we're working on it now,
Promise not.
is to create a central warehouse that a person could go to find all of the affordable housing in Beaufort and Jasper County. Where it is, what the rents are. There are some things we can't put in there, but that doesn't exist right now. So we're creating that along with everything else that we're doing. We are, practically everybody we talked to in the last year and a half says we don't know anything about affordable housing and tell us what it is you do. It's a pretty skewed organizations, some very pro-housing organizations and some that are not so friendly. But we've had open doors for everybody to walk through. But Jennifer's right, as we get bigger, we'll have more capacity. But our phone rings all day long.
It rings a lot, but We try. I mean, there's not a lot we can do right at this moment, but we're trying to. We can at least take them, show them other places, partners, trying to right now.
Well, and that's what I was thinking of, with the actions on here, you can create the affordable housing locations, criteria weighting, blah, 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 but we may want to add something into that says, here's where you can access, or less, lower medium part is someplace to better access, and she would say, yes, we've got a very comprehensive website. Let's make sure we get it out there, get it accessible.
Thank you,
to
John.
those who need it.
We're also launching a community education and outreach committee in January, which will help us with some of that messaging and how to put it out there a little more openly and freely. We work with several nonprofit partners all across the 2-county area that have our information, that are giving that out to people who don't have that access. But we are looking for new ways to get the word out.
You do have a sign for the hospital door when you check it.
Beaufort Jasper Comprehensive Health Clinics would be an obvious good place to put literature. I mean, the one out on St. Helena is literally next door to the library. And they're very proactive at both of those institutions. I'm sure they would.
I wanted to see if y'all still agree with this on our end to consider expanding the required affordability period to 25 years. Do y'all still, is that still inappropriate?
That refers to one specific density bonus in our code.
Yeah.
I think the bigger question would be expanding the density bonus, and then we could open up a discussion about how long the period of affordability would be.
So if a developer is using low-income housing tax credits, he's already signed or she's already signed on for 30-year.
Oh, it's 30. Okay.
So maybe adjust that on our end to reflect that.
Yeah, because I think in some cases we would be using them in conjunction with affordable housing tax credits.
So where this would apply is to the Pulte deal, because that is, they are setting aside the units, but they're not using any federal funding. So if you want to say these units have to stay affordable to 80% AMI for the next 20 years, that would be a really good place to apply that.
So that I understand it, then you're putting a restriction on the future sale as to what they can sell it for.
Yes.
Because there are people out there that would try to take.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have anti-flipping language in all of the things that we do, because we know, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You give me $100,000 in an appreciation on my house, and I want to flip it tomorrow.
So would it really be beyond, or would it be 2 years?
Well, right now we're saying beyond 25 years. I think, and right now our density bonuses only apply to one zoning district. So I think it would be kind of two conversations, two actions. One is expanding it, making it something that's more usable in our code, or maybe it's applicable to, in a case like Ramsey Farms, maybe if they applied those density bonuses, they're not necessarily having to do, they might be able to get their product a little more. I struggle between wanting to create quality communities and those type of things. But, so that is, the question is expanding it, and then the next is, what is it? Really? Yeah, and I think we had something before where 20-year, if you do 20%, or something like 25% is 20 years, 20%, 25 years. So you might be able to get more units for a lower period, or less units for a longer period. But
I have this reference of the 2018 Housing Needs Assessment. I didn't know if that has been updated, if you'll know what that is, who did that?
it was done by Bowen.
Was that before Asakura Robinson?
Yes.
That was the precursor to Asakura Robinson, and Asakura Robinson is what came out and formed, basically gave the idea to form us.
Asakura Robinson gave us all of our kind of operating oversight.
2018, I can't even imagine that that's.
I
would say, we're not looking at it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you all are looking at it.
Does the Asakura Robinson, does that actually does it break down? Because the one thing the affordable housing, the needs assessment did is it broke down different housing types and the need, like for housing or in this income range versus this one.
We probably need to do another
Yeah.
one, and that has
Yeah.
been talked about because it's what 2020.
Hezekiah Robinson was primarily
And we've been through.
here is your operating plan sheet.
It's a
Yeah.
totally different world.
I think what this should be is update the
Yes.
housing needs
Yes.
assessment.
I do too. I think that might be a
Because,
reasonable goal.
I mean, the reality today is probably
Start
10
different.
Oh, I mean-
away from 2018.
I was like,
We've
and
seen
there was
such a
COVID,
big
and
jump.
there was COVID in the middle of all that, which
Yeah.
changed
That's
everything.
changed dramatically.
Okay, so maybe update.
Yes.
Okay. That's 2018 assessment. Okay. A lot of these are probably gonna have to be changed since y'all have now been created. And that was a big part of the comp plan within
Yeah.
this housing section.
Yeah.
So definitely gonna have to change the
Yeah.
wording on that. So like establishing affordable housing task force, all that, I guess, could go out the window.
Yeah.
I did, so I'm gonna work on that one, definitely update that. I did wanna ask y'all, I was talking with, I guess, from LCOG, and she had said that within the past years, CDBG actually doesn't do much with housing anymore, affordable
Yeah.
housing. So do you think maybe that's something that should leave the housing
Yes.
part of the
They,
comp?
they use CDBG funds here almost exclusively for infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what she had said. Okay, so I think that would be,
Yeah.
if y'all go with that, tossing
Yeah.
that part
And
out.
should 3.3 either go away or be updated as well?
I think right now we're counting on your agency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and that, I'm gonna definitely look at H3.
Do they use the home funds for the repair program?
Leave the home funds in.
I was gonna leave
Because that's
that.
the
Yeah.
repair money,
Yeah.
I think, that they use.
Okay.
And developers can actually get some home money as gap fillers.
Oh, okay. So there's, yes, I remember like some of it was dedicated to housing rehab and some was for larger.
Yeah. So Carrington had a gap.
Mhm.
They went to LOCOG and they gave the money out of home funds.
Okay.
And that was it that I had for
Yeah.
housing.
That's pretty good.
So moving forward, I realize that this is a bit like drinking from a fire hose.
It's kind of, yeah. That's a great analogy.
Do we, and I'm kind of offering this because this is kind of our pilot workshop. And we went through two really tough sections. I think economic development and affordable housing are some of the definitely issues that are require a lot of broad, different approaches to reach an objective rather than just, if you do this, this will happen. So I think we did a great job at overview. Would you like maybe each of the planning commissioners have an opportunity to go over this chapter, put together questions, comments, or suggestions, and then maybe we revisit it prior to our December meeting?
Yeah.
Is that that way we have an opportunity to revisit these questions?
Yeah,
And
sure.
You mean for just these two chapters?
yes. We're going to have when is our next workshop? Is it
Next
the one?
Thursday.
So next Thursday, and that is transportation. So there's no easy, I always say, no, we'll just, knock off these two chapters at this meeting. But I think we're kind of, it's
not that
a
easy.
pretty dense document. I mean,
Very
there's
dense.
not a lot of words, but there's a lot covered in that.
Speaking of next week, can you guys send out an actual address of where this is?
Yes. Yeah.
Rob, so
And we will have
Building
it.
right in
so
front
the
of us.
homework for us would
It's
be
the, it's
if
the
we
next
have
building.
other suggestions
Right
that
before that.
we
Next
talked
building.
about today. And here, you guys will present
It's a different building.
an update for Is that what I'm looking at?
No, I think what we're looking at is
Is that a
Because I'm running that meeting, I need to know how to run it properly.
The next
at
workshop's
your
supposed to be on this campus.
Okay,
Thank
so I think what
Thank
we
you.
would
Thank you.
all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and instruct.
Sir.
We'll send an email out to the
Thank you.
commissioners.
You'll have a good afternoon.
But I think what might be easier is we use that as an opportunity for all of you, based on everything you've seen here, our discussion, reading through the document, we'll then have that be a follow-up. And then what we could do is then take all the comments that we've got today, in addition to that, and then we'll be able to come up with recommended, based on your comments, this is what we recommend moving forward.
Is there any particular addendum you want us to use? You want us to use one of the ones that were handed out, or do you want us to go back to the
I think what would
the
be
full
best
comprehensive
is
plan?
simply to take the 2 chapters, and I think what we could do, one would be simply to take the chapter, you'll just to go through each of the recommendations based on this discussion, and then each of the commissioners have an opportunity to write down any questions or suggestions that we could then add to this conversation and then the staff's review of this. And then what we could do is then take all that and then formulate a draft document of what we think is basically encompassing all the recommendations and comments that have been made.
When we look at this, are we looking at the full action plan against this recommendation, or are we looking just at the recommendation?
We're looking at the chapter.
Just the
So
chapter.
we're looking at the list of strategy, because there's a combination of policy statements and then action items. So
Well,
that's what
I
we
was
do.
thinking in action items, in the action playbook, where we
Yeah.
identify funding, the prioritization, who's going to be responsible for it, et cetera.
Yeah.
We're not touching that.
We're not really there yet. I think it makes sense to, with each chapter, if we're saying these are the revisions that we recommend, then once that's done, we could revise the action playbook,
Yeah.
and then look
Yeah.
at that. Do
Yeah.
we need to change the priorities and
Yeah. Because
I think
we changed the plans or the descriptors.
yeah.
It's going to change potentially the action plan.
Yes.
And if we don't update one or the other, we don't have anything to really go forward with.
Yeah, so I think it makes sense. We deliberate through each of the chapters,
Okay.
and then once we have that finalized, then we'll be able to plug all that into the action playbook, and then maybe that's another meeting just to go through and say, do we want to change priority of some of these?
I think as a pilot, this is excellent. I mean,
It's
I've participated.
a lot of information, and these are 2 tough chapters.
Well, yeah, I've participated in a number of the meetings, and
Yeah.
never did we have the people who were essentially responsible, the lead people here to talk with us, to get their insights. And they're doing some great things. In fact,
Yeah.
it's a lot more complex than we were revealed.
And then I get to answer the tough questions if you ask me.
It kind of sounds to me like taking a document and you're going to edit it. And sometimes the rationale is right in the editing. It's very easy to understand. What would really be helpful would be to have something, and then here's the rationale that supports that. You understand what I'm saying? Here are the statistics, this is what we recommend doing. But the rationale behind why we're recommending that is kind of hidden.
Maybe even as a clarification, once it goes to council, it's almost, I understand what you're saying, it's like an addendum so that they understand that our thought process as we went through these workshops of why we came to the decisions of the changes that we recommend.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
If someone was just reading it, it's going to say, why did they do this?
Right.
And if we have a
One
rationale
document
to
at the
it.
end.
Right,
Yeah.
right. With almost like footnotes.
Yeah, I think either that or you have a few paragraphs for each of the chapters that maybe provides an overview of what are some of the changes that we saw and the reasons that we're making the recommendations.
That could work too.
They could read that, see an overview, and then you see the list of edits that
Yeah.
And Rob, I really appreciated your opening comments about how a 5-year update is different than.
A rewrite.
Yeah, 'cause
rewrite,
it's so easy to get down into the weeds when we
Oh,
really
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need to be at this point in the process for most of this stuff. So.
So for next Thursday, you want us to look at these 2 chapters and come up with points, or do you want us to look at transportation in addition to that?
I think what next Thursday, we'll focus on transportation. I think what I was thinking, because of this meeting, and we really looked at 2 chapters and consolidated into 2 hours, that we need more deliberation among the planning commissioners. So we'll reach out to all of you with the 2 chapters and then kind of ask you to provide comments. And our thought is the workshop period before December meeting, to give you some time.
Yeah.
Maybe we can use that hour prior to the meeting
Yeah.
to revisit these
Well,
chapters.
we have all of, correct me if I'm wrong, we have all of 2026 to pull this together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're coming into the holidays and all that, and you've got, Thanksgiving coming up and all that.
Yeah.
We can't cram too much.
All right. Thank you.
Can't cram too much in, but I think it's the first 2 chapters, and since it can seem as it can be a model for how we want to go forward on the other chapters.
Yeah. So it's a lot of stuff. But,
Yes.
But I think any opportunity to highlight the comprehensive plan and get our minds wrapped around it is a good thing.
I'll let you know what we're doing today. So.
Thanks for watching Beaufort County TV.